Welcome back, everybody, for another episode of Humans of HR. We are in conversation with Mr. Chand Narayan. The last few episodes have been very interesting because we've been covering almost the entire HR life cycle. And then we also spoke about how to manage attrition. And once we do all of that, we do fantastic onboarding, we do fantastic job design. We go on to manage the culture piece really well. We go on to manage the attrition well, and then people love to come back to office. They're always there. They want to spend all the energy. And then comes the important question from the business side, from the managers: how do you build outstanding teams? So we managed to attract fantastic talent. We managed to retain fantastic talent. Our engagement is high. But then how do we build high performing teams? That's the question we're going to be pondering over today. So welcome back, Chief. So on this thought, where do we start this conversation?
Or we start in the intensive care unit. No, really. So Harvard was doing a research on patient outcomes in the intensive care units. Professor Amy C. Edmondson, she was looking at what are the factors that determine patient outcomes apart from the line of treatment and the specific issue that the patient, medical issue that the patient is having. Surprise, surprise. They found that so what happens in an ICU is that the senior doctor is in charge of any patient who comes in, and then that doctor is responsible for determining the line of treatment and etc. And what she found is that those senior doctors who took pains to talk to their junior doctors to take their inputs. And sometimes, based on those inputs, were willing to change their approach, change their line of treatment. We also consulted the nurses during the period of the treatment. And in fact, where the nurses felt safe to come up and tell the doctor that there is a problem and maybe what you're trying to do is not working, as well as probably the technicians and the admin staff. And so the doctors, the senior doctors who had created an environment in the extended team where people felt safe to come up, give their suggestions, give their ideas, and push back or confront if they felt something was not being done right. It looks like the patient outcomes for those doctors were significantly better as compared to the other doctors who were more on a
My
direct.
way, the highway.
Not necessarily, but obviously when you're a senior doctor, you have far more experience and understanding and so on. So it's not necessarily wrong. So that Amy Edmondson called psychological safety, that the doctor, senior doctor, was creating psychological safety for the others, typically juniors, to be able to give suggestions, contribute with their understanding or insights, and even confront if they thought that something was going wrong. So there it stayed in the ICU in medical services or health services until Google looked at its highest performing teams. And one would assume that Google, being a tech company, the quality of the people in the team, the technical capability, etc., would be the most significant factor for an outperforming team, a high performing team. But here again, they found that the most significant factor for a high performing team for Google was psychological safety. And so that is from where it actually came into the rest of the corporate world. That if Google is looking at psychological safety and their best performing teams have a significant performance differential with other teams because of psychological safety, then surely that is important. And then the researchers kind of found that there are four distinct elements to psychological safety. The first one is what they call inclusion safety, that people feel that they can be themselves and they will be accepted as they are, and they can, they don't have a challenge in being part of the team. The second component was called learner safety, that people feel that they will be able to make a mistake without anybody embarrassing them or there being very negative consequences for them. And therefore, they can learn, they can make mistakes. It's okay to make mistakes. The third component was called um, contribution safety, that I feel free to be able to contribute my skills and my understanding and my insights and bring my skills and capabilities to the table and add to the team's output. So that was contributor safety. The last one they said is um, what they called, I think they called it challenger safety. And challenger safety is a place where team members feel free and are not afraid to challenge something which they think is not right, or to push back and say that, look, maybe there is a different way we can do this, or there's a better way that we can do this. And it is also kind of called confrontational safety. And I think the other expert, Patrick Lencioni, who's famous for having written this book, The Five Dysfunctions of a Team, and he's an expert on building high performance teams. So he also talks about this. He says that if you don't have psychological safety, then none of the, then these five dysfunctions in a team will happen, and therefore your team can't be a high performing team. So it looks like the fundamental basis for building a high performance team has to be psychological safety. Now, here is another interesting research, and there are lots of different pieces of research, but this one is from University of Amsterdam, MIT, a couple of other places. And what they found is that uh, about 20 to 40% of a team's performance is driven by the quality of relationships within the team. So better the quality of relationships within the team, the higher is the performance. And that is significant. 20 to 40% can be the difference between an average performing team and the highest performing team in an organization. So that is very significant. Now we've talked about all the cultural aspects, including the concept of theory X and theory Y, in terms of what mechanisms, what systems do you build, the job, the job design itself. How are you designing the jobs? Are people feeling engaged because of the role itself, because the work that they do? And are they the impact that the work is having on them? Is it a negative impact, or have you designed so that it's a satisfactory experience, and so on? So the first factor, it turns out, interestingly, is psychological safety.
Very interesting. Very interesting. So, if I was to very quickly summarize, we're talking about the psychological safety stems from the fact that they can be themselves, right? They have their own space, and in their own space, they are allowed to make mistakes and rectify it themselves. Be aware, and contribution safety, bring their skills to the table and feel that they have contributed to the overall success. And I think the fourth one is the undisputed king for me, because the minute you come across people who are able to challenge and be critical about things that they feel is not adding value um, to the final outcome, I think that's a fabulous indication. Now, while we talk about psychological safety, the relationship within the teams is of significance now that we've established, and the relationship amongst people in a team, many a times, or I mean, if I was allowed to say something without the backing of numbers. I would say every time it is dependent on the way that people communicate with each other,
Absolutely.
right? And there are a lot of places, workplaces where there is success, but people are also talking about how toxic it is because
Yeah.
the conversation, the communication is extremely violent.